Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, July 30th, 2018. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is The Global Reality. Thank you very much for joining me here for the show. Yes, indeed, I'm back here. This is a full show, not just a little update show, so strap in. We got lots to talk about and discuss with you here on the show tonight. Glad to be with you. Got a lot to get into here. Got some of your emails to get into. Got some topics and maybe a few news items. Got a lot here, so we'll be getting into all of it here for you on the show tonight. So I'm glad to be here with you. You know what I'm doing. You know what I've been doing. You know I have been on here. Well, I tell you what, but it's been quite a ride. That's all I can tell you. Oh man. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I, as you know, have been working feverishly on the Spellcasters 2, which will then be followed up right behind it with Spellcasters 3. And, as I've told you, and I've just, over the course of making this film, I've endured more stuff than you can shake a stick at, man. More stuff than, and you know what? Guess what? The fuckers still hadn't got me down. They still hadn't. They fucking tried, man, but they still haven't got me down. I'm still standing. I'm still kicking. I'm still here. And it's been a ride. Yeah, I told you about a lot of the issues and stuff we've had going on. I, of course, wanted to have the film out already by now, but we had, over the past week or two, we had more snags, more unforeseeable snags. The first one we had was the stuff with the software and all that, which slowed me down and slowed the computer down and all that. I told you about that last time. Got through all that, got through work and all that. But also, like I told you last time, though, too, something I've done that I had the foresight to do that I've never had the foresight to do in any of my past works is I've had the foresight to do constant backups the whole time I've been working on this film. And I'm not just talking about backups of the work itself, the files and all that stuff within the video editor. Last time when I had to do I told you about the issue I had with the editing software and the plugins. I had to completely reinstall a brand new operating system, brand new version of the editing software, just so I could use the video effects plugins. And, to be honest with you, just that alone in the past would have fucking, thrown me hard and made me, but it really didn't this time. I think it's because I honestly, I've been doing this for so long now. I'm really starting to become good at it, believe it or not. With each successive film that I do, I get better at it, and my techniques and stuff get better, and I learn how to do the stuff. And then I told you what they did with the editing software, which I still don't get why they did that. I mean, if something's not broke, don't fix it. And the stuff they did with the editing software when they changed it to the most recent version, it just made no sense. Stuff like, it's hard to explain to somebody who's never worked on stuff like this before, but they've had all you have different locations for buttons and stuff within your editing software that do different functions. Like, you push this button or this something over here for your different effects or whatever. And they were all in the same location. They've all been that way. Same thing with little things like where your audio meter's at for your audio meter. And, well, they changed all of that for no good reason. It didn't improve it. It didn't make the software better than it was. There was no reason to change it. It was like they just wanted to do it to fuck with people. Really, it seems like that. It seems like Apple does that a lot with a lot of their stuff, doesn't it? It does. It seems like Apple just wants to change stuff just to fuck with people. I swear to God, I'm not kidding you. If you guys have used Apple products, iPhones or whatever, you probably fucking noticed that. Like they just do shit sometimes just to fuck with, like fucking, what's his name? Steve Jobs or something had a fucking something in his will, like the fuck with you clause. You know, all future Apple software and products must have changes done to them for no apparent good goddamn reason, just so I can fuck with the customers from beyond the grave. It seems like some shit that motherfucker would do. So they did all these changes to the stuff. And, you know, again, something like that a few years ago probably would have thrown me off and whatever. It didn't. It did a little bit, but once you learn it and learn where the new location stuff at, it's not that different. But like I said, you know, this computer is 7 or 8 years old now. 8 years old. I got it in 2011, but I believe it was a 2010 model when I got it. But so I've literally done every film and video and everything, all that stuff I've done since The Secret Right Volume 2. Okay? Think about that. All the films I've done since Secret 2 have all been done on this machine. So I got all the new software and stuff installed. Got back to work, like I told you last time, last update I did, whenever. And then started working. And you may have noticed over the past, I don't know, I guess maybe it was last week or the week before, stuff fucking blurs together. You may have noticed that it was like, I mean, I've been on a lot of radio silence lately because I've been working on the film, but you may have noticed an extra amount of radio silence about a week or so ago. Like, you didn't see me posting any, like, the fundraisers or anything on Facebook. You didn't see anything posted by me on Facebook at all. Well, there was a reason for that. There was a reason for that. So, again, like I said, got the software installed, got all that new stuff on there, had to learn all the fucking new locations and shit. Did that, got back to work, started, getting pretty close. And cut a long story short, I didn't know what it was at first. To be honest with you, I thought the whole computer died. The whole thing it wouldn't come on. Got it one day, worked for 12 hours, took a nap. I don't even call it going to sleep anymore. It's like taking a nap. That's really all it is. Got up. Computer wouldn't come on. I'm thinking, oh, fuck, what's this? Turns out the hard drive died. Cut a long story short, I thought the whole fucking computer died. Long story short, the fucking hard drive died. Excuse me. Luckily, when I did the new installation of the operating system, when I had the foresight at that time to do a disk image backup as well, which I probably hadn't done maybe ever on this computer. I've done it before in other boxes, but I don't think I don't even know what possessed me. I guess I've just been trying to be, double extra careful and everything since I've been so close. But luckily I did a disk image like 2 weeks ago. So I had to order a new hard drive. Had to spend money I didn't have for that. I had to spend that. Had to get a new hard drive. Had to wait for it to get here. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I had to take apart this fucking... Okay, because if you don't know, changing out a hard drive on an iMac, not quite the... I can change... Like, if you got a PC, I can swap your fucking hard drive out on your PC in about 2 minutes. Max. Changing a hard drive on a computer is the same as changing an alternator out on a car. It's really the same exact thing. And I've done a lot of both. I've got it through the years. I've gotten good at doing a lot of both of those. But with an iMac, not the same thing. In this iMac, as I told you before, it's got a fucking... The whole screen looks like somebody took a hammer to it. That was another weird thing that happened, I guess, last year. I can't remember when it was. Woke up one day and my fucking computers looked like somebody just walked in and took a hammer to it. I mean, it's just... There's no rational explanation of how that happened. It just looked like somebody just came in and literally just took a hammer to it. You know, it's up elevated in the air on top of the thing, and the thing wasn't moved from one day to the next. I looked and maybe thought, well, maybe I was running it, you know, hot, and maybe the screen got hot and cracked. Now, no, that can't happen. They've got contingency stuff for that. So, with a busted screen, I had to take apart this fucking iMac and get in there. You got to take the whole thing apart. I mean, with a fucking PC, you just unscrew the bolts on the back, take the door off, bam, unplug the data cable, unplug the power cable to the old one, plug them both in, boom, screw it back in, zip the box up, it's done. You're off to the races. Totally fucking different thing. And I'd never done it. I've never done it. Oh my God. And you notice I'm not screaming and yelling. I've been trying to keep myself calm here, but anyway, I got it in, got the disk image in there, got everything booted back up, got it reinstalled. But the bitch of the situation was that even though I'd done a disk image, the disk image I did was only good up to whatever point I was at when I did the image. So while I didn't lose any files and I didn't lose any data or anything, I did lose all of the work that I had done since up to the point that I did the disk image. And that was about the last, it was about the last 20 or 25% of the film. So, long story short, that is why the film has not been out yet, but it's closer getting there. And I've been, again, just working fucking feverishly since then. No time to do any updates or anything else since then. Because I guess I kind of expected something like that would happen. That's why I did that. I had the foresight to do that backup a couple of weeks ago. I'm so glad I did. Because again, 100% honesty, that's not something I normally fucking do, you know. But something, that little voice, something said, maybe you should do this. So I did and got the backup, luckily. And, but like I said, I've been running this thing like three bitches on a fucking bitch boat for how many fucking years straight now? Especially this past year, just, you know, running this thing nonstop. And, sometimes I feel the back of this thing and you can feel the heat. Feel it's hot, and it normally doesn't run that hot, but when you're running video editing stuff, when you're running all the processors and all the cores and all the RAM is going, especially when you're doing encodes and stuff, yeah, it runs hot. I'm just glad these Macs use such, that's the one thing about the Macs. Number one, the video editing. I used to use PCs. The first two films I did, 9/11 New World Rising and Secret Right Volume 1 were done on PCs. Before I had a Mac. That's why you can see such a considerable jump from the Secret Right Volume 2, which is the first one I did on a Mac, and then all the successive films after that. Because the PC, the editing software and shit, and the plug, it's just not up to the same level and the same professional level stuff you can do on the Mac. And that's, so I had to deal with that. What was I going to say? I was about to say something about that. I can't remember what it was. I was making a point. No, so I've just, I basically had to go. Well, the good thing is, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of the analogy here that anybody can relate to. I guess it's the old, the old riding a bike analogy. Once you learn how, you don't forget. Well, it's kind of similar to that, since I'd already done that work once, right? And all the voiceovers and video files and pictures, all that stuff's on external drives. So when the hard drive failure happened, I didn't have to worry about any of the actual material and data and stuff that I'm editing into the film. Didn't have to worry about losing any of that. But what I did lose was all the progress of the edits. But like I said, all the previous finished stuff of the film was already all saved anyway. So save up to a point. But when you're not expecting the computer to not working, all the progress you've made since then, there's no way. Once the hard drive goes, if you don't have an image of everything up to that point, then you lose all that. So that's what I lost. But so that's what I've been doing. I've basically just been having to work backwards and redo and do again a lot of stuff I've already done. So as far as the film goes and everything like that, that's where I'm at now. But again, hey, that's just the bad news, and we're done with that anyway. So I'm still on track. I believe I'll be able to have it out this week. Like I said, I've been playing catch up and have to work back and go back and do stuff I've already done again. It will be here sometime this week, around the end of the week. I can't put an exact date on it yet. Again, there's no way to do that. The upshot is, I think, because the hard drive is newer, and the technology's gotten better, so it's probably better. I have noticed that it's been running faster. So that's, again, sometimes a negative happening like that sometimes actually can yield positive results as well. And in this case, I did notice that, like I said, when I put the new editing software and the new OS and stuff, I noticed it seemed like it was slowing down and taking longer to render. Not the actual editing stuff didn't seem like it was taking longer, but the rendering of the files, which already takes the longest amount of time anyway. But I noticed that it seems to be running faster now with a new hard drive in it, so that's a good thing. My goal is to have it out Friday or Saturday, somewhere in there, and to be done with it by then. Like I said, it depends on how long it's going to take me to do all the rest of the work I got to do. I think this one I've got at least 3-4 days, maybe 5. That's only because, again, I'm playing catch up on the stuff I've already done. But yeah, hope this coming weekend is what I'm shooting for, and I'm so excited. I guess that's why I haven't been. It's easy to. I really, in the past, I probably the shit that I'm a lot calmer. I think it was because I quit caffeine back in November. I think that's what it is. Caffeine used to give me like the fucking roid rage, man. Like, I used to get anger. Anger, man. Like, freak you out kind of anger. Which sucks, because then you get some people who haven't hung out with me in a while, and they think I still act like that, and I haven't in a while. I believe it was all 100% for years from caffeine. I think that's what it was. The kind of just, flip out, break shit, go nuts. Since I quit caffeine, dude, it's like completely chilled me out, like beyond anything else. It's really weird. It's the only thing I can account it to, because it's the only major thing I changed my diet and stuff, but when I had the first round of the Bell's palsy back at the end of last year. But I don't know, man. In the past, those kind of snags and stuff that I've been dealing with, and I would have went berserk. And I haven't got berserk. I definitely am a lot more calm. I've been working on getting I had high blood pressure and stuff too, so I've been taking these herbal blood pressure supplements and stuff, and reduce my blood pressure, and in the caffeine, I'm a lot more calm and chill. Which also reflects in the fact, I probably seem a lot more calm and chill and doing the radio show too, and a lot of people like me to flip out and do all this crazy shit, but that shit's just not healthy, man. It gets my blood pressure up too high when I do all that. So, full transparency, if you don't hear me having, screaming, yelling, freak out fits on the show much anymore, that's why. It's not that I've lost my edge or I've, don't think this stuff is important or serious anymore, but my health is more important than any freak out or this information or anything else. And I'm sorry if you don't agree with that, or you don't think it is, but that's just the way it is. And so, and I'll tell you what, it has, it's another reason I think why it's taken me longer to make this film too. because I really noticed a big. I mean, let me tell you, man, caffeine is the worst drug I've ever been addicted to in my life. I never got addicted to pills or Coke or none of that stuff. Never had, never did a whole lot of that. I did, hallucinogens and stuff back in the day. But, man, caffeine, I got to tell you, that's been the fucking hardest bitch to kick, man. I think caffeine's one of the most addictive substances and detrimental drugs there is, much worse than, marijuana, mushrooms, any of that stuff. It's a fucking motherfucker, dude. And it's not considered in the same category of drug as other drugs, and it is a drug. People try to argue it isn't. It is. It's a drug. It's a highly addictive chemical substance. It really is. And it's tough to kick. And it's still tough, man. It's tough for me. Like, I won't lie to you. There are times when I'm like, man, I really want some fucking... I'm from the South, so, sometimes I want some fucking sweet tea. I want a fucking glass of sweet tea right about, especially when it's 120 degrees in Dallas. Jesus Christ, But I've noticed that, when working on the films, I used to have this, I can't describe it. The only thing I can describe it is almost like it's like a laser focused, almost like a tunnel vision thing that I would get into. That's why you hear me on some of the old shows. If you hear, especially when I'd go on like, a lot of it's adrenaline, but like 50% adrenaline, or actually more like 40% adrenaline, 60% caffeine. That's why you'd hear some of these old interviews and old shows and stuff I'd go on and be like, people probably thought I was doing fucking crank or fucking coke or something. No, man, it's just sheer caffeine and adrenaline. And probably more like 50% caffeine, 40% adrenaline, and 10% just, especially when I go on shows and interviews, wanting to get as much information in there as possible in a short amount of time. But man, I was drinking so much soda for so long, tons of it. I mean, you were drinking like a fucking 2 liter a day or something. I was drinking for a long time. A day. That's fucked, man. But it's just, old habits are hard to kick, and you start drinking that shit when you're young, and then, when you're in school and stuff, there's soda machines in the lunchroom, soda machines in the gym. And then you get older, and it's, everywhere you go to the restaurant, they're selling soda. It's a hard thing to kick, man, but I kicked that shit. And it's weird. It's a strange thing, because I've never been heavily addicted to a substance for this long, to the point where I had to start to adjust to its effects. So again, if I don't seem like I have the same fire and intensity that I used to have, sometimes it has nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that I'm not on caffeine anymore. And that shit was jacking me up like roids and roid rage and fucking speed and crank. I mean, literally. So that's why, I noticed that during the filmmaking process time, I noticed I seem to be move slower, and I'm not going 1,000,000 miles an hour like I used to. I try to go that speed, and it's like my body won't even do it anymore. It's weird. It's very strange. But again, I've had to focus on keeping my health and everything, and just deal with it. So that's what I've been trying to do. So anyway, I just want to explain that to you guys. I don't feel like I've really explained it or talked about it here on the show. I haven't lost my fire, my intensity, or my drive at all. I've just literally, it's like I was a 6-speed before, and now I'm like a 3-speed now, because I'm not on that fucking drug anymore. I'm not cranking on the fucking caffeine anymore, and I was cranking on that shit hardcore. I mean, especially when doing a film run, drinking that shit all night and then trying to go to sleep and then wondering why, oh, I've been working on a film for 14 hours straight. How come I can't go to sleep? Well, geez, genius, you were fucking drinking soda all the way up to the point when you went to sleep, when you decided to go to bed. You know, you can have, if you're going to have some and then cut it off. No, I wouldn't cut it off. I'd drink that shit all fucking night. All day, all night, working on the film, and then try to go to sleep. And then lay there, can't go to sleep. Well, I wonder why you can't go to sleep. So then you got to start taking the fucking, like those over-the-counter fucking, Sominex and shit like that. You got to start trying to take that and then fucking take that and it zonks you out. And then you wake up feeling like you went on a fucking bender the night before without the fucking hangover of you. You feel groggy and you're slowed down. So that, that becomes its own trap. So, I mean, even now, even still without drinking caffeine, just normally, it's still difficult for me to go to sleep. I still have problems. And it's because I keep my brain, especially, I mean, already my brain is already hopped up and on overload 24/7 from the information, constantly researching and constantly news gathering and all that stuff that I do. But when you do a film, then it's amplified times 10. And like I said, man, I still have problems, big time problems, and trying to, I want to try to sleep without, having to chemically knock myself out or whatever. And then the other thing is, I quit drinking back in 2011. I still have an occasional drink here and there, a few times a year, but I mean, I used to be a fucking madman, a madman drinker. And then it just quit doing anything for me. I couldn't get drunk anymore. I could drink and it would get, and I was just like, I'm just poisoning myself. Like, I just took myself out of the game. And what I realized about that was that for years I wasn't actually, I don't think and I think that's still the problem now, even though I'm off the caffeine, off booze. I think the big problem is now I don't know how to properly go to sleep. Because for so many years, I wasn't doing anything but passing out. You know what I mean? Because I drink booze and whatever else. And then you're passed out and you wake up. Because I used to, for years, which seemed like most of my, at least my adult life, late teens to, most of my adult life, it seemed like, waking up would be an ordeal in and of itself for me. You wake up groggy and black circles under your eyes, and what the fuck, man? I was asleep for 8 or 9 hours. How come I feel like I didn't sleep at all? And it takes you an hour to feel like you're woken up. I don't have that anymore. That's unbelievable. Like I said, it's sometimes it's difficult for me to go to sleep. It's difficult for me to switch my brain off. But, man, since I quit drinking and I'm not on caffeine anymore too, it's crazy. I don't think I've ever felt like when I can go to sleep, when I go to sleep and I wake up, I don't have that, groggy, trying to wake up. I don't have that at all anymore. I wake up and I feel like the same as I did when I went to sleep. It's crazy. I've never experienced that. It's because that's how long I've been, chemically altered. Literally, I just didn't, my body just didn't know how to go to sleep on its own because it was so fucked up on, just being passed out from alcohol for so long and got rid of that. But then, I think for so many years, that's why it didn't bother me. When I was drinking all the caffeine, that's why I didn't have any of those issues before in the past, because I was drinking booze all the time. So when you're drinking booze all the time and you're pounding alcohol too, then you don't really notice it. You just fucking pass out from the alcohol. And then you wake up the next day and you're, can't wake up. You're groggy for like an hour and a half. And then eventually, finally, you get, you're woken up and you're ready to go. I don't have that at all anymore. I wake up, I'm ready to go. I'm awake. So yeah, man, it's just been crazy adjusting to it. And being that this is because I mean, when I did Spellcasters 1, man, I was still on the caffeine and stuff then. So I was just cranking. But, man, now, it's just, it's weird. It's like you're driving one car. You've been used to driving one car for so long, and you're used to the speed and the handling and just all the little things of that car. And then you switch cars and you go to another one, and the handling is completely different. The speed's completely different. That's what I feel like in my own body. It's hard to describe. That's exactly what I feel like. I still feel like me, but I feel like, wait a minute here. The handling, the control, the speed, everything is different than it used to be. And having to adjust to that. Yeah, it's a different thing, man. But like I said, the most important thing is that all of these changes and all these things I've done, yes, they have affected. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, it's like I said, it's affected my perceived intensity. I think, like, I'm not as yelly and screamy and raging as I used to be. And the same thing with, I don't have the anger issues and stuff that I had either. And I believe now you can't see the forest for the trees at the time. But now I know 100%, because for a long time too, I used to be on those diet pills for a long time. Those where there's like those stacker 2s, stacker 3s, and those were like jacked with caffeine. Those were like basically like fucking over the counter speed, really. And I was on those things for fucking 7 or 8 years, man. I was on those things for a long time. And plus still drinking soda and booze and all that too. I haven't been on those in a long time. I quit taking those, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. But I look back on that now and, man. And, it's still I think people just don't realize it. I mean, there's Starbucks on every corner and everything. I mean, I think caffeine is much more. I mean, it should be literally scheduled as like, it just blows my mind that you've got stuff like marijuana and psilocybin mushroom, naturally occurring plants that are Schedule 1, but no medical value, yet you've got caffeine, which is just an absolutely horrible addictive substance. But it's all about perception, just like everything else. The perception is that it's not, and that's the thing. They've got people addicted to these substances that, they don't want to. I mean, caffeine is a physically addicting substance. You can get, people say, people argue whether or not you can get addicted to marijuana or not. Some people say, you can. Some people say, you can't. Well, what they're arguing, those apples and oranges, is two different types of addiction that you're talking about. You've got a mental addiction to things, and then you've got a physical addiction to things. And most of the addictions that happen to marijuana is mental addiction. You become mentally addicted to the buzz, the high, the feeling, or whatever. But your body doesn't become. Well, I get that's not. I don't think that's also necessarily true. It doesn't become as physically dependent on it in all cases. You can. I mean, you can, but it's not like. It's definitely not like caffeine or heroin or something like that. But caffeine is like heroin, where your body becomes physically addicted to it, and if you don't have it, you get ill. And I went through all that when I first quit caffeine. I had but it goes away. You just got to fight through it, but it goes away. You'll get the razor blade through the brain, headaches, and that's all just the withdrawals from it. But, what's even worse than that is the aspartame, as you know. My God, I'm glad my body can't do aspartame at all. Like, it can't even tolerate it. There's only been a few times, it's happened to me where I've accidentally ingested aspartame, and my body just immediately I just get ill immediately. I get a splitting razor blade through the brain migraine if I ingest any aspartame. I've only ever ingested aspartame by accident. I remember, 10, 11 years ago, they started, a lot of the gums and candies and stuff started switching over to aspartame. They didn't make a big deal about it. They didn't announce it to anybody. I remember somebody said, "Hey, you want a piece of gum?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure." So I didn't think anything about it. Stuck a piece of gum in my mouth. As soon as I stuck that piece of gum in my mouth and chewed it once, my brain, I could just feel my brain feel like it had a razor blade go through, a knife through it. And I just calmly said to the person, "Hey, can I see that package of that gum real quick?" They were like, "Sure." So I took the package, looked on the back, and I was like, "Yep, just what I thought." Spit the fucking gum into the trash. They're like, "What the fuck, dude? Why'd you spit that out?" I'm like, "It's fucking aspartame in it." And even the person that gave it to me didn't. I'm like, "No way." Looked at it and was like, "What?" I mean, it was like every single gum thing had, I don't know if it still does, a lot of the gums for a while, every single gum had aspartame in it. And then a couple times, back when I was drinking sodas, you go through a drive-thru or something, and you order a Coke or a Dr. Pepper or something, they give you fucking diet. Ugh. Take a big old slug off of that on a fucking hot day when you're thinking it's a regular Coke or a Dr. Pepper or something. That's good. Take a big old slug off some aspartame and just feel that instantly. So, the people who don't want the sugar or the caffeine in the regular soda, I'll have the diet soda. I mean, because has there ever been a fucking more, not just deceptive, but just a bold-faced lie of it? I mean, calling these drinks diet, labeling them, it's diet. It's good for me. It's diet. I mean, it's worse than the regular shit. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, even some of the diet stuff still has caffeine in it, right? They just replaced the sugar or the high fructose corn with the aspartame. And said, aspartame, my God. Can you imagine? That's why you see so many people. I mean, you think it's bad, just somebody like me addicted to caffeine, sweet tea, Dr. Pepper. Those were my drugs of choice. You see these people that get addicted to fucking Diet Coke, dude. That's why the Diet Coke addiction is even worse than the addiction to the regular stuff, because you're getting the double whammy with that. You're getting the caffeine and the aspartame addiction. My God. And what is aspartame? Something like 20 times more addictive than heroin or something like that? Literally. So that, again, that's why you get so many people. You see people where it's not just like, I mean, you have people like me addicted to caffeine, Coke, coffee, tea. And that's one level. But then you have the other level. The Donald Rumsfeld Deluxe Special. I don't care how many people it kills. I want it on the damn market. Direct quote from old Rummy, the master of evil. I mean, that's why you see so many people. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody, be on these, strict diets? It's just hilarious. Be on these strict diets and all this stuff, and then, I'll have a Diet Coke. What? Yeah, I don't do drugs, bro. And they're sucking down a fucking diet. Ugh, disgusting. But that's the double fucking whammy. So I'm just glad that my body has never had any tolerance for aspartame. I can only imagine. It's like I said, it's been difficult enough breaking free from the caffeine junkie monkey, but I can't imagine trying to kick aspartame and caffeine at the same time. And there's been people who've really had to go to like rehab type situations for it, been hospitalized for that stuff. That's how bad it can get. Horribly addictive drugs. And yet, naturally occurring plants that grow naturally on the earth are perceived as, that's just big business for you, isn't it? Really is. But like I said, it really has been an adjustment period. It's been very strange. I never thought it'd be that big of a thing. It's actually been easier because I just quit cold turkey once I got the Bell's palsy and stuff, and it told me I need to start working on lowering my blood pressure. I got on the blood pressure medication, and that's helped considerably. And just immediately cold turkey quit the caffeine as well. And didn't have any sort of, I wasn't jonesing for any at all. I never had that. I've had, like I said before, I've had the thing where some certain days have been like, man, I could really go for a glass of sweet tea right now or something. I had that, I could really go for an ice cold Dr. Pepper. But I never, in the period immediately following when I quit ingesting caffeine, I never had any jonesing for it. Like, like people, I gotta have it, man. Like I never had any of that. Not at all. I had the headaches for the first a few days of the first week or so. Nothing bad, nothing like you would expect. It was actually much easier than I thought it would be. And it's really just a mental thing, and really just saying, just discipline yourself and say, look, I'm done with that. I'm not going to have it anymore. And once I did it, it was easy. But like I've said previously tonight, what I didn't expect was how different I would feel mentally, physically. I feel so totally different than I felt because I guess think about it, man. I've been drinking sodas since I was a kid. Literally. I mean, I can remember, I know for a fact I've drank sodas nonstop since at least, maybe not as an early child, but probably since 1986, since I was about 10. Yeah. So do the math on that. I'm 42 now. So probably I haven't really even ever, for most of my life, even known what it's felt like to not have that in my system. And the raising of the blood pressure and the rest of that. So now that I've lowered my blood pressure and I'm off the caffeine, again, I'm a lot more relaxed and chill and whatnot than I used to be. But it's tough, because you get people who judge you strictly just on how you've acted in the past and stuff, and they think you still act like that now, so they still treat you the same way they did before. And it's difficult to explain to them that the game has changed for you, But I quit worrying about that stuff. I don't want to give a fuck what anybody thinks about me anyway. If they want to think that, that's on them, not me. But yeah, I mean, it really has. It's really changed the whole game for me. And as I said, some of the negative effects I have noticed that when I'm doing shows and whatnot, I don't have the. It was like a button before, really was. I could just turn it on. It was like hitting a switch. It was like I could go into that, on a dime. But I no offense. I love you all, but I don't want to, none of this stuff is worth putting myself in an early grave for. I'm sorry. These motherfuckers already want to put us in an early grave with all the stuff that they're doing to us and all the operations and the psyops and the medical industrial complex and the food. I mean, all this stuff, and I still think that one of the best things we can do to combat them is to not make it easy not make the job easy for these bastards, But I could turn that shit on like a switch now. Now I think about it, it feels difficult. Like if I find it difficult to just, it's like a governor on a car. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I want to go into that rage or that scream or that loud thing, like a, anger thing that I used to do. And then it's like it's not even in me anymore. It's like I can't even do it anymore. And again, I guess some people might see that as a bad thing or whatever. Think that has something to do with me not having the same passion or and drive. And no, it's not at all. It isn't at all. My drive and my want to fight this stuff and to expose this stuff and to, go into areas. That's one thing I'm proudest the most of the work that I've done here is that, good, bad, or otherwise, I've always done stuff that other people haven't done. I've always been ahead of the game in areas of certain subjects. I mean, it blows my mind sometimes. I mean, the stuff that I've seen come out recently, I don't know if I could find the article right off the top of my head here, and I've got so much stuff on these browsers, but a week or two ago, an article came out and made all the major news rounds. And again, it's just a testament. I mean, I was already ahead of the game with the CMP stuff. I mean, the stuff I came out with the Secret Right series. I mean, it really took 5-6 years for people to catch up with that information. And, I was ahead of the game. The first film ever made about the CMP was The Secret Right, and I'm still proud of that. And then the stuff that I did with the Lost Secrets of Ancient America and the rock wall and all that. But here it is. Again, it's not bragging or ego or anything else, folks. Literally, oftentimes my work is years ahead of even mainstream stuff. A lot of the stuff that I did in the Lost Secrets stuff was years ahead of mainstream archaeology, and still is still years ahead of mainstream archaeology. Specifically, the stuff that I found in Lost Secrets of Ancient America, Volume 1, that was, you want to talk about some pure research that was not aided by, completely unaided, pure research. A lot of the stuff that I've done in the Lost Secrets films and also now in the Spellcaster series has been real pure research, not aided by anybody else's work or work that anybody else has already done, stuff that I've purely found on my own. And that feels the best when, and it doesn't have it all the time. But in the Lost Secrets of Ancient America, when I was doing the Rockwall stuff, because originally, that was all that was supposed to be. That was another case. I mean, much like the Spellcasters, I have these goals and I have these, what I think the film was going to be. Lost Secrets of Ancient America, Volume 1 was originally only supposed to be a film about the Rockwall. And in approaching the research on the Rockwall, the way that I approach research of any kind, in any subject, ultimately led to this much larger narrative and this much larger thing. Because when I was looking at the Rockwall, I was saying, okay, well, I established all the data. I looked at all the data available. And then trying to figure out, and what it is and what it's not and all the rest of it. Started to say, okay, if this is what I think it is, then there has to be something else or other things like it found in other places. So then I started looking at, okay, well, what's been found around the Rockwall? Well, the first two things I established was the presence of giant skeletons reported on in two Rockwall newspapers that all subsequently went belly up right after reporting them. And then the appearance of large mounds, ancient mounds around the area of Rockwall, around the wall too. So when I started working from that, I didn't know anything about mounds or giants, or I didn't have any clue about any of that stuff, folks, prior to working on the Lost Secrets films and doing the Rockwall. I had no clue about any of it. And when I started to look into it and find not only that there had been, giant skeletons found all over America, and in many cases found inside the mound. See, at that time I was thinking there was two different phenomenons. When I started to find out that these giant skeletons and giant graveyards have been found across Ohio and Indiana and all across the United States, and found inside mounds, and then the stuff I found about the Lewis and Clark expedition, and how they would uncover going through places like Alabama, they came across these giants, that were Native Americans, they were Indians. They were like, they seeded the tribes. They were, they'd go through the reports of them finding them sitting. They found a giant in Alabama whose name was Tuscaloosa, by the way. That's where the city of Tuscaloosa, Alabama comes from. And they found this guy sitting in the lotus position on top of a giant mound. Stuff like that. And then finding the other, all these other strange and ancient archaeological discoveries that just don't add up, that have been found across America. And, of course, that's in my travels in Volume 1 and Volume 2. That's what I detailed, and showing how all this stuff connects together. None of this stuff is separated. But the thing that I really pulled out that nobody else had discovered concerning the rock wall to that point was, as a kid and stuff, and in my teen years, I was always into gems, minerals, and crystals and stuff. I was into that stuff. And then as I got older, I kind of got out of it. Wasn't really interested in it anymore. But when I got into my research into the rock wall, I started getting back into it again. And that's what led me to starting my own gem and mineral and crystal business and stuff, and doing a little bit of that on the side, was because I had some knowledge that I had previously, from stuff I'd studied when I was younger. And I had enough knowledge from back then to when I started looking at the mineralogy and crystallology of the rock wall to know that, stuff's just not natural. You don't find tourmaline and all these different minerals. You don't find them separated from their host rocks and then ground into a mortar substance and then cast into bricks. It just doesn't happen naturally. You can't have these elements form naturally in nature separate from the host rocks they form on. You cannot have tourmaline in a ground up form that isn't attached in its crystallized full form, as you would see when you look at a specimen, attached to quartz. It's impossible. So once I'd established that, when I got the analysis from they've done a bunch of analysis, but the more recent one that John Lindsay had done, when I'd gotten the data. By the way, if you go to my download shop, it's free to download it. It's in the download shop. Bud Shelton's Geological Report on the Rockwall. If you download that and go through it, it's got all the percentages of the crystals and the minerals and stuff that are in the rock wall in there. So once I'd established that and found out what specific minerals that were in there, then I had to start figuring out, okay, well, somebody had to have gotten this material from somewhere. It had to have been quarried, processed, and then transported. And I know for a fact some of these minerals that are in this rock wall are not anywhere to be found anywhere close to Texas. And then I started finding out about the Llano Uplift near Austin, and started finding out about Barringer Hill, which I'd never heard about. And that was a mind-blowing revelation, and how, just like they built Lake Ray Hubbard to cover up part of the rock wall, they built this lake to cover up what they call the largest cache of rare earth metals and minerals ever found anywhere on planet Earth. That even had uranium in it, the uranium that they mined for the Fat Man and Little Boy atomic experiments, and that they built this lake on top of it to cover it up. But why? If there's that many crystals and if there's that much money, think about the money, especially now. with how in demand rare earth metals are for electronics and all of that stuff, and with China having the stranglehold on it. I mean, you would think that in this day and age, more than ever, we'd want to be in there tapping that stuff. And, you'll see all the stuff in Lost Secrets of Volume 1. If you've seen that film, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then you can see that. Because I went to that lake, and then I started finding, okay, well, they didn't just cover this stuff up because of there's billions of dollars, trillions of dollars worth of rare earth metals, the largest cache of rare earth metals ever found on Earth, ladies and gentlemen. Why wouldn't you want to tap that? Well, that's when I started to realize they were covering up more than just the rare earth metals and stuff. I started finding reports of only like a few miles from Llano, they found another rock wall. And they found all these weird pagan idols and stuff in there. And they found evidence of massive quarries and stone processing going on. And almost all of the minerals that make up the components of the rock wall are found in abundance in Llano. And that was really a huge breakthrough. Something, one of those things that nobody else had found. John Lindsay hadn't found that. Nobody else that had ever looked into the rock wall had ever found that before me. That was pure research stuff I found on my own and went down there, made trips down there on my own and confirmed all that, and found out about the substance launite that we've had and sold some of. A substance that's completely unexplained by science. They don't know how the blue crystals, quartz crystals in that launite, which is a form of granite that has blue crystals in it that's formed. They don't know no scientific information on how it occurred. It's only found in that one place in Llano. And then here's what I'm leading up to with this. Again, that movie came out in 2013, and much of that information I found in 2012, so do the math on that. It shows you how far ahead I am, because there was I could tell you, I went down there probably 5 or 6 times and went to many places, and there was no interest. And this has happened. There's been a few of the mound sites that we visited in the Lost Secrets of Ancient America film, the spiral mounds. There's been several of these mound sites that really had no interest in them at all, that have since that film has come out, have all of a sudden, they've had archaeological teams going out and digging up these places. I've covered many stories of it here on the show through the years since then, but this one really blew me away because this was big world news. Who were the first Americans? Ancient tools dug up in Texas add to the debate. This is what I've told you. One of the things I kept finding, and it's funny how just since Lost Secrets of Ancient America comes out, how much they've been slowly I've used this term again and again, pushing it back, slowly sort of pushing back the timelines on how long people have been here. And it says a new archaeological find, underline that, a new archaeological find. Because I'm telling you, previously, nobody was looking for anything down there in Llano around there until Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 1 came out. They just flat weren't. A new archaeological find suggests that humans inhabited America, specifically parts of what is known today as Texas, as far back as 21,700 years ago. Again, still a conservative estimate, but still light years over what they were admitting to just a few years ago. A group of scientists led by Thomas Williams of Texas State University recently unearthed more than 150,000 human-modified stones at the Galt Archaeological Site in Central Texas, about 40 miles north of Austin. That is right in the heart of the Llano Uplift, ladies and gentlemen. They don't say that here, but it is. I can tell you, I've been in that area. That's where it's at. There's another rock wall down there somewhere that's been discovered. I mean, there's so much work left to do on that whole end, and I hope to get to it eventually in the future. The group doesn't claim to have nailed the answer to the question, who were the first Americans, but they might have discovered another runner in the race. The find illustrates the presence of previously unknown projectile point technology in North America from before 16,000 years ago. A previously unknown projectile point technology in North America, meaning they have never found this type of projectile point technology anywhere in North America ever before, ladies and gentlemen. And it's exactly where I told you they quarried the materials they constructed the rock wall with. Williams' team of archaeologists excavated the Texas bedrock and uncovered ancient rocks shaped into bifaces used as hand axes. Well, I'm telling you right now, that 21,000 shit, you better push that back. I mean, the rock wall's in the neighborhood of 340,000. 21,000, that ain't even close. They're much old. If you found them at the bedrock, they're hundreds of thousands of years old. But they're going to just conservatively, and not to freak people out, just say 21,000. No. If you uncover those down on the bedrock, they're a few hundred. Just like the Atarian bifaces that have been uncovered in Africa. We had a few of those for a while. We sold a few. Some of you out there got some of those from us. Those are Cro-Magnon tools. Those were uncovered in Africa, and those are a few 100,000 years old. Maybe on up to close to 1 million. So same thing here. That's why you've never found anything like this before, because the material that you're pulling off of the bedrock to get to where these are at was there pre-flood. It's covered in pre-flood, post-flood soil and materials, just like the rock wall has been. Not much about the physical traits of those who use the tools can be inferred from the material in the find, but its significance lies in how old the items are. The team used optically stimulated luminescence to age the materials, which means they were able to find how long it had been since the sediment of the items were found had been exposed to sunlight. See, there you go. That doesn't necessarily mean that it could be much older than that. But you had, whenever these events were, that pushed the soil up over these materials, so that's what it's able to. All this dating that they use, it's all speculative dating. None of it's close, but the only reason we know what we know about the rock wall is because of the soil analysis that is conclusive. You have different types of soil there, and you can analyze that soil and see what materials are pushed up in it, because it contains certain materials that come up from the sea and the ocean and stuff. After a haul of flint spearheads near Clovis, New Mexico was uncovered in the 1930s, popular scientific belief held that the first occupants of the Americas, referred to as the Clovis culture, arrived around 13,000 years ago, according to National Geographic, but the Galt find is one of several more recent and deeper digs that put that theory to bed. So again, prior to my work in uncovering the stuff that's been there in the Llano Uplift and how old it is, nobody was down there looking for shit. Now, all of a sudden, they've got archaeological teams down there since Lost Secrets of Ancient America came out, and lo and behold, what are they finding? They're finding the oldest and most unusual artifacts they've never found anywhere else in North America or anywhere else in the world at all, and they're finding them specifically here. There was some sort of genesis point that happened there and long ago, and it's intimately tied in with the rock wall and those materials. But again, the methods that they use to extract the minerals from their host rock is still a process unknown to us. But nothing went to waste. Because like I said, all that stuff that has to be extracted from quartz, and that was my big question, where did all the quartz go? There had to have been a big, gigantic amount of leftover quartz when they extracted that all those minerals, tourmaline, starlight, titanite, brookite, all that stuff. And as I mentioned, columbite and niobium. The rock wall has niobium in it, which is a structural engineering material that we didn't even know about till the late 1800s that can only be found in columbite. There was no columbite found in the rock wall, and there's no columbite found anywhere in Texas. But the only way you can get niobium is to extract it from columbite. You use it in anything where you're going to have, a lot of heat produced as a result of what you're doing. They use it in jet engines, rocket engines, superconducting super colliders. So if you put niobium in whatever kind of structure or thing that you're building, it keeps everything from reaching too hot of a level and keeps all the temperatures down. But yet, out of all the materials that I found relating to the rock wall and the Llano Uplift, that's the one thing I could never find. Where they got the niobium at and how they could have, methods they could have used to extract it way back then. Obviously, it was with technologies hundreds of years advance of what we have now. Just like what has been found in stuff in Cusco and all the other marvels of ancient engineering that have been found across the world, laser cut stuff, things like that. But the just so much of the structural engineering and the mechanical and chemical engineering. I mean, that's the interesting thing about the rock wall. It was built. I have no question. No, there's no doubt to me that thing was. It definitely served multiple purposes. It wasn't just a structure. It wasn't just like a something to encompass a kingdom or whatever, a living structure or something. It was a free energy device. Because when you apply frequency to it, it rings like a bell and produces an electrical current. People always ask me, all the reasons why they want to keep stuff like that covered up and keep stuff like the rock wall covered up. And that's really the main reason. It is partially about not wanting to disturb the narratives, or have their narratives that they've instilled in us as the truth for so many years be turned on in. That is partly it, but it's not the whole explanation. The biggest thing is that, it's not just that, yes, okay, it'll verify that there were people here before us. I don't think even your most, with the exception of, like the fundamentalist Christians that believe the Earth's only 10,000 years old and all that horseshit. With the exception of that, most people anymore are not really shocked and wouldn't really be shocked by learning that there were intelligent people on the Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. What they're more worried about is that these people weren't necessarily humans. That's the other reason why they want to keep this covered up. It's not just that they had advanced technology and learned how to use it, but we're talking about some, a whole group of other individuals that just from the evidence don't seem to appear to have been humans like us. There was something in somebody else, but they had advanced technology. And, lo and behold, as I was talking about earlier, I was like, God, they extracted all these minerals. You had to have had all this leftover quartz. What did they do with all this leftover quartz? Well, that's where the geopolymer mortar for the wall comes into play. Is that mortar was made from 3 different types of quartz crystal. And I said, that was the other thing. Where would you, somebody would have had to go through a whole lot of trouble, right? What would be the purpose of somebody going to all these 3 different locations to get these different types of quartz just to make a mortar? And that's when I found out about the Llano stuff, when I started uncovering that's when I realized, they just did this they didn't do that because they were specifically trying to do that on purpose. They had all these different minerals that came from different locations because they had to extract the tourmaline and starlight, titanite, brookite, all those different elements, quartz, zircon. Zircon and what's the other one? Had it on the tip of my tongue there. All the ones that are in it. But you would have that's when it dawned on me, okay. That's where all the quartz went. And that explains why you had different types of quartz in the mortar substance on the wall. They had to do something with all that leftover quartz. That's what they did. All the leftover quartz that they extracted the host minerals from, they used it and combined it into this geopolymer mortar that, when it's exposed to air, becomes airtight and locks and seals. So they had these I can't remember what the Mohs scale hardness is for the rock wall. I can't remember, something extremely high, because it's almost indestructible. And then you've got the mortar substance that it sticks together with. And then because of the makeup of those combined crystals, which, by the way, again, if you and I, let's say that we tried to create our own rock wall stones. We got all those materials, we mixed it all up, we tried to make our own bricks out of it. We wouldn't get the same results as you get in the rock wall stones. It's impossible for us to get that same result. Why? Because by some method unknown to us to this day that we don't know how to do, if we took all those substances and mixed them all up, it just blend together like a big stew. Somehow in the rock wall stones, the individual makeup, the molecular structures of the individual materials remain independent in the mixture. They don't all mix and blend together. The molecular structures remain independent in situ in the bricks. We do not currently have any technology that's able to do that. And somehow in the rock wall stones, the individual molecular structures of each individual mineral remain intact. Now that is what, in my opinion, gives it its ability, and why some people have tried to explain it away as a natural formation, because it's working on natural principles to have its effect. Because you've got all those materials in there. Natural piezoelectrical energy is produced naturally in the ground, but by certain types of crystals and rocks and stuff like that. But by combining all of these different materials together and then stacking them on top of each other with the geopolymer mortar, how they did the frequency thing, I don't know. I mean, John Lindsay discovered it by accident because they parked the fucking bulldozer up on top of the wall, and the low frequency vibrations from the engine started making the entire structure ring like a bell and spark and produce electricity. That's why when they tried to debunk it and with that CIA's fucking spook Scott Walter on the America on Earth, that's why they failed miserably. Yeah, people bought it. A lot of people bought it. And yes, it did convince a lot of people that it was a natural formation. And yes, it hurt my work considerably. But that's why it flopped and failed, because he never, if you watch that show, he never tells you the makeup of the stones. Never once do they discuss that. And he does this little thing where he says, well, the magnetic reading should do this and do that. But what he doesn't tell you is the reason he gets the magnetic reading on that is because of the quartz. Because it will always give you that reading, but because he doesn't mention that anything about the quartz mortar or anything like that, they don't give you the whole information, then it's easy for him to say, well, it's just natural because the magnetic stuff doesn't do this. Wrong. Not taking into account for what it's made for. But I was just blown away when I saw this, that now here they are, where it seemed like nobody had any interest in that area at all a few years ago. Now here they are doing fucking archaeological digs down there in the Llano Uplift region, where I tagged as, absolutely positively the quarry location for the materials of the rock wall. And all of a sudden here they are, on the first dig they do down there. What do they find? Oh, we find the oldest tools ever dug in North America that changes the timelines from when people were here. No big deal. So once again, I remain years ahead of mainstream archaeology and years ahead of a lot of other people in this stuff, folks. It's just, again, it's not bragging, but it's just where you go when you're operating on pure research instead of operating on what other people have already done, other people already found. Now, of course, you have to rely on some of that sometimes, But so many people out there, they're just repeaters. They're not real researchers. They just repeat stuff they've already been told and found everything else. All right, we got some more stuff to get into for you here on the show. We got some stuff here. A couple of emails I want to read for you as well from listeners. This is our fundraising week as well, folks. We have to reach 100% of our operating cost goal by Wednesday. Tomorrow's already Tuesday, so go ahead and start getting your contribution stuff now. I mean, I got to tell you, I've been saying this for months, and it's been this whole time leading up to this has been a very crucial time for us. But I got to tell you, never has it been more crucial than it is right now, because I'm on the precipice of having one film out this week, and then volume 2 or volume 3 out in another couple of weeks after that. But again, none of that's going to happen. None of that's going to be possible if we don't get the operating costs covered by Wednesday. So please go and start getting your contributions in now. Check out the perks, all that stuff. And you can find the link to the fundraising banner. You can find it on all of our Facebook pages. We've got the Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page and the Josh Reeves Filmmaker Talk Show Explorer page. It's PayPal only. If you want to use a credit card or a debit card or something else, you can use the donate button in my website, or you can just contact me if you want to contribute any other way. You can also get a prepaid Visa gift card and activate that, send me the numbers and all that stuff, and I can process that on my end. And if you don't have a bank account or PayPal account or something else like that, so there's no excuses. If you can't find a way to contribute on the banner, you can still contribute. So just always email me, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. If you want to contribute, need another way to do it. But that's the best way to do it. If you don't have a bank account, PayPal account, or anything else, just get a Visa prepaid card. You can put any amount you want on it and then send me the numbers, and I can process it on my end. And also, conversely, if you have a credit card or debit card and you don't have a PayPal account, don't want to use PayPal account, just email me, because you can always send me your card information, and I can process it manually on my end through the little card reader thing on the app. So, man, I'm stoked. I'm so fucking stoked for you guys to see this movie. Like I said, and I that's one of the things about doing movies is that they're always such a learning experience for me. I mean, much less what you get out of them when you watch them, but they're always, every time, it really is the best analogy I can give it. It feels like leveling up, It feels like I was at one level before, and then when I get done with a movie, I'm at another level I wasn't at previously. And, it's a new plateau. And once you get to that new plateau, you don't go backwards. That really is, as tough as it is, and as much bullshit as it is, and much work as it is. And like I said, I'm done after this. After these two movies, I'm done with any more huge, massive film projects. I'm not going to be doing any more epic, long movies like this. 2 movies that are, however fucking long, 4 or 5, 6 hour, whatever. I'm just going to be done with that. But the experience of making a film and learning, every single film I've made, it's been that way. Where what I end up learning and achieving, and it really is rewarding. And that certainly happened in the process of making these films, the Spellcasters. I mean, I've learned my knowledge and what I know now compared to what it was previous before starting the film series. It's mind-blowing. It really is for me. So some point this week, I'll have some kind of little trailer or something ready for you as well. I'll put that up just to whet your appetite a little bit more, even though I know it doesn't need to be wet any more than it already is at this point. Believe me, I'm right there with you. I want this thing to be out too, but and I don't mean to keep harping on that, but I really think I think I would have had, I think if I was still jacked up on the caffeine and jacked up on the, it was like, I can't put any, I've never done steroids. I've never done that, but I just, that's the only thing I get equated to is fucking roid rage. That's really what that I think I would have, I seriously don't think I would have made it, man. I think I would have had a total fucking berserk Tasmanian devil fucking freak out. Throwing shit, breaking shit, fucking, they probably would have put me in the loony bin. I gotta tell you, all I've had to endure since making these films and the shit that I've been subjected to and gone through and the hurdles I've had to overcome constantly, I mean, it's out of character for me in a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way. Completely out of character for me. In a way I've never, I mean, I'm proud of myself. Did I want to have this movie out long before this? You goddamn right I did. Am I pissed that it's just now about to be out? Yeah, I am. But not anything like what I would have been in the past, folks. It would have been unbelievable. I just would have had a complete, total, utter meltdown and not even be here anymore. I would have just went, evaporated into a puddle of goo and anger. That may not seem like a big thing to you, man, but I got to tell you what a huge accomplishment it is for me, and how I've dealt with all the hurdles and all the things I've had to endure while working on this film series, and to be this close and coming out on the other side, almost done. By the end of the week or whatever, I'll be done with this, with volume 2 at least, and then I'll be on to volume 3, which will only take a couple of weeks to get done after that. But just like I said last time, the last show I did when I was talking about, I had these problems and stuff, but I'm staying positive in it. It's uncharacteristic for me in a good way. But it's crazy. It's just weird. It's weird to experience that, It's weird to experience something that's, you see it, sometimes you see it in other people, you see people change and you see people evolve and you're like, wow, man, that person's really they really, progressed, they've really grown. But it's a completely different thing. It's a completely different thing to see it in yourself and be able to acknowledge it in yourself and actually be so profound and drastic compared to what you were before, that it has a profound effect on your psychological makeup. And it really has. I mean, I don't know, man. I just don't think that if I was still in the same mental and physical place I was previously, drinking all the fucking gallons of fucking soda every night and fucking running on fucking junk food and 14 hours straight in front of the computer and tunnel vision and the fucking fingers going a million miles an hour and getting up here on the show and raging and screaming about fucking Alex Jones going fucking berserk nuts. And I don't know, man. I don't think I would have been able to do this, because I've told you, and it's not a lie, I already bit off way more than I could ever possibly chew with this movie. The good thing is there's so many little details and so many little things, and you can't fit everything in there. It really is going to be fun to talk about when I'm doing interviews, because I'll be able to add so much more doing interviews and talking about this stuff. I'll be able to add so much more to the conversation and to the narrative in the interviews, because there's so much little details, dude. There's just no, I mean, again, I could work on this thing for 10 years and I'll never be able to get all the stuff in there. So that's what's going to be fun and interesting when I start doing interviews, is that I'll actually have a lot to talk about and a lot to say about these subjects, because, when you work on something for this long, man, you just, even if you don't want to become an expert in it, you become an expert in this stuff. And there's so many little revelations and things that I didn't think this stuff was going to tie in. I guess that's probably been the biggest thing for me, and a happy accident, but also, since it is the same film series, from the Spellcasters Volume 1, I really had no intention of this having anything to do or tie in at all, honestly, with any of the stuff in Volume 1. I really didn't. That was not my intent to do that at all. It really was the only thing that was really going to be in any way similar to Volume 1 in the continuation of the series was going to be the title. Really, honestly. I was really only going to be exposing music conspiracies and stuff, and lo and behold, little did I know, and as I found out, and as you'll see in the film, I had no idea that the core of this stuff and all of these music conspiracies and all this stuff that extends and over decades and decades and decades all connects back to the same genesis point that I discussed in Volume 1 of the Spellcasters, that goes back to the origins of the, even prior to MK, of when it was called MK Ultra, but going back to those original psychological warfare and all, and the programmed, Manchurian Candidate type things, all that stuff. I mean, I really, again, I had no idea or no clue, no intent that any of that, of this stuff with the music conspiracy stuff was going to connect directly to that, and it does, and that was what's blown my mind. So when you are able to sit down finally and watch Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3, you'll see how it all connects together. And I never, in my wildest dreams, when I first decided to start this film series, I never imagined that was going to happen. It didn't even know that a lot of this information existed. And so that's one of the things that I'm grateful for. And yes, again, like I said, did I want to have it out before now? You're goddamn right I did. But sometimes stuff takes that long for a reason too, and reasons you don't even see and know. It's bizarre. It's intangible. It's almost metaphysical. I can't even really explain it and put it into words. But there is a weird kind of metaphysical things that goes on, man. Sometimes I don't know whether you just chalk it up to the universe or synchronicity. I don't know. Being on I found when I'm on the path of something that when I'm on the right path, the stuff just flows and comes to me without me even having to try and find it to put it together. And it's happened continuously every time I've made a film, and here we are again. It's happening yet again. I had no clue that all the stuff I was going to, I was just planning on taking some of the various different music conspiracies and stuff and detail them and put them together in a film to show people, some stuff that maybe they haven't thought about or even considered or even knew before. I really had no clue that I would uncover what I've uncovered, which is the thing that ties directly in with the same stuff in Volume 1 with the mind control stuff, and how it connects to all of these different seemingly unrelated musical personalities and rock stars and everything else spanning decades from the late 50s all the way up until now into the present day. One continuous thing that connects all these things together that people just wouldn't even think connect together, from the Fall stuff to, Kurt Cobain's to all this, the Finders cult stuff, all that. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And again, this is definitely, I mean, I'm still going to plan on making, more movies and stuff in the future, just nothing on this large of a scale, but man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever do anything again that's more important and as massive as this. It's just beyond even what I expected. And again, oftentimes that happens when you make a film, but more so in this than any other thing. This is just blossomed and sprung into something beyond all of my expectations and anything that I expected to happen over the course of making a film like this. Absolutely insane. All right. See what we got here. A couple weeks ago, I put out a video up on YouTube. If you didn't see that, check it out. The Alex Jones, Joe Rogan, or CIA psychological warfare agents. That was some shit, wasn't it? Jones just straight up says he's fucking CIA. I don't know what the good elements of the CIA, folks. The good elements of the CIA. He's always spinning some shit like that. That's the same shit he used to spin back when I used to listen to him. Back 2005, 2006. People used to call into Jones' show and bring up Freemasons and stuff. And he always had this same thing he'd always spin anytime people would bring up Freemasons. Well, those are porch masons, folks. 90% of the Freemasons out there, they're porch masons, folks. They don't know what goes on at the higher levels. Porch masons? That almost sounds like, where are you pulling that from, Jones? Only thing I know of is, we're in this high. Look, I'm saying this word. I'm not using this one. It needs to be clear before I use this word. I'm not using this to use it. I'm using to state it as this is a word that is used. But there is a term called porch niggers. And so that's what everything like, Jones, where are you pulling that from? Porch masons, folks. Porch masons? He used to say that all the time. That most masons are just porch masons. Well, that's not necessarily true. But that's the thing he's pulling now. My point is, that's the same thing he's pulling now with the CIA stuff. I was with the porch CIA, folks. The porch CIA. Good elements of the CIA. That's like saying that I was with the good elements of the Nazis, or I was with the good elements of the eugenicists, or I was with the good elements of the depopulation killers, whatever. Anyway, my point is, I've got here's some emails here from listeners. Joe Rogan, Tom Cruise, and Scientology. What the fuck? They really are trolling you. Goddamn, you were right. This is an email from a listener. What the fuck? I have not even finished listening to this clip. It's funny thing is, to the person that sent this to me, I saw this clip about an hour before they sent it to me, and I was like, I'm going to be getting hit with emails about this one. And sure enough, about an hour later, I was. I says, what the fuck? I have not even finished listening to this clip, but I will, but I didn't have to finish it. I heard enough halfway through it. You're absolutely right. You didn't have to listen to all the way through. There wasn't anything else in there, because I did listen to it. Anyway, he says, you probably have already caught it. Regardless, Josh, you were so right about the connections between all these guys. Thank you, but please don't take this the wrong way, but I know. I'm glad you see it now. But I've been trying to tell people that for a long time. It's hard for me to be humble about something like that. I know I was right. I mean, you got to understand, I started exposing Joe Rogan even before his show got even huge. I started exposing him back in 2009, 2010, when he had that fucking sci-fi show. I've known about that ass hat for a long time, man. Seen him associating with Jones. Even back then, I knew that, even before he had his podcast going and stuff. Josh, you were so right about the connections between all these guys. What a circle jerk of spooks these talentless hacks are. Couldn't agree more. It's like they really are listening to you and trolling you and your listeners. Couldn't agree more. Or rather, their handlers are. This is so fucking bizarre. I wish you safety and protection from any harm that they may want to do to you. Well, thank you. I'm gonna be fine. Yeah, I obviously want to know your latest Spellcast 2 and 3 content you've been holding back on ASAP, but hold us that aside. Please put your findings out where you're capable. Well, I'm working on it, bud. Got to pay for these operating costs this week too, so please contribute everything you can to that so we can reach that goal. Otherwise, none of this is going to happen. I have no clue what they've done to fuck with you, but I don't think you're kidding when you say they're messing with you directly. I did have doubts at first. It's too bizarre to believe for most people, and they must count on that. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would feel 100% the same way that you feel. That's why I was reluctant to talk about some of that stuff for a long time. It was going on for a long time, and I didn't mention it until it got real bad, and that's when I decided to start talking about them fucking with me. Because when you hear somebody else say that, if I heard somebody say that on a radio show, I would be like, oh, well, whatever, they're making it up. I know, because I've heard people say that shit before, and I didn't believe it. It's not, it's all fun and games till shit starts happening to you. That's the fucking thing about it, man. Believe me, I'm with you. So, no, I don't hold that against you. Again, that's why I was reluctant. I didn't even bring it up for a long time. Because it sounds fucking crazy. It sounds ridiculous. It sounds like the person that's saying it is fucking crazy and out of their minds, but I'm not fucking crazy and out of my mind, and the shit that they have been doing with me has been fucking real. But again, I held back on talking about it for a variety of reasons, not just because, obviously, it does sort of sound unbelievable when you hear somebody on a fucking show talk about it and say it. But also at the same time, if I was somebody that was just making this stuff up and saying this just to say it, you got to think I would have been doing it long before now. This is my 11th year of broadcasting. And none of this started happening except in the past year or two when I started working on this Spellcaster series stuff. I mean, I didn't have any weird stuff like that happen to me when I was doing Secret Rite stuff or Lost Secrets of Ancient America stuff at all. Because the connections that I've made here with this stuff and this and especially with the mind control stuff and the links to, you know, the entertainment industry and all this, there are links and stuff that I found. I would have been able to put this together 10 years ago. You know, it's only because I've been doing this for as long as I have now, and I've been looking at this stuff, and I've been doing the work, you know, starting with, you know, 9/11 New World Rising and the Secret Rite stuff, and on and on and on, and constantly researching and constantly changing what I think and what I know and my outlook on this stuff. I mean, the connections that I've made and I've put together with this stuff over the past couple of years with the Spellcaster stuff is only possible and only able to be done because of all the work I've done over the years and nonstop researching everything else. You know, I've come to this place where I've been able to make these connections and find these connections together that nobody else has found yet. And yeah, I think that's 100% why they've ramped up fucking with me over the past couple of years, when before I didn't ever used to, you know, because people used to always ask me, you know, do you get messed with about this doing this stuff? Or it's the biggest question I always get. And I've said, no, you know, not really, a little bit here and there. You know, sometimes you get threatening emails, you get weird hacks, you know, you get weird visits from the alphabet agencies on your fucking website. You know, I had like the NRO. Yeah. If you don't know about the NRO, that's some serious shit. Fuck the CIA, fuck the NSA. NRO trumps them all. You start getting visits from, I got visits from DARPA. Like, what? What the fuck do the boys in the white lab coats down at DARPA want to do with me and my shit? Obviously something I can only think it would have to do with my technological dot connecting I've done, both in terms of transhumanism and the Rockwall advanced technology stuff and that I've talked about. I have to think that would be the only things I've ever discussed that the boys in the white lab coats down at the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency would want to do with me. But for 2 or 3 days, they were hitting my site about 20, 30 times a day, and then it quit. So obviously, well, and some of it I can't talk about now because I can't spoil the film, but obviously the stuff that I've connected in my most recent work here with the Spellcaster stuff and what little I've talked about on the show has been what has really got them fucking scared. And that's why they've been fucking with me. The connection stuff I've uncovered with Scientology, the stuff connecting to the MK Ultra program and to, you know, exposing all the stuff with Jones and the connections there. They really, honestly, folks, a lot of this stuff, they really, really thought that with Jones and people like Joe Rogan and other disinfo shills that they've had out there, they really were confident that because they've had so much disinformation out there and they've created so many parrots and people who just repeat stuff and don't do their own research and make videos on YouTube, and it's been saturated to the point where I think they just got arrogant and just figured, well, look, nobody's going to figure this now. We've got it so convoluted and we've got it so messed up and there's so much divide and conquer. We've got so much cognitive dissonance and everything else going on that nobody's going to figure this out. But I've always been on my own path and I've always not been taken by this stuff, even though, you know, it's cost me fans. I mean, I remember when I first started exposing Joe Rogan, I had lost fans from that. People don't say that anymore. People have figured him out more now than they used to. But, you know, so I remember when fucking Zeitgeist came out, everybody was all over that. And I was like, this is bullshit. They're not giving you the full story. They're mixing in some truth with fiction here, blah, 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 blah. I took shit for that. Turns out I was right about that. You know, all the flat earth stuff, even before it blew big. even before it became the huge thing that it is now, the huge controversial thing it is now, I started seeing it 4 or 5 years ago. I started seeing it pop up, and I started getting emails about flat Earth stuff. And I was getting emails from flat Earth stuff from people like Killtown and I can't remember some of those other clowns. It was the same people that when I got into 9/11 Truth stuff around 2006 and 2007, before I started the show and made my first film, even before it became the huge thing it is now, I first started seeing when it started getting revived 4 or 5 years ago. I was getting emails sent to me, and the people that were sending emails to me about flat Earth stuff were the same people that were pushing the no plane theory stuff for 9/11 back when I first got into the 9/11 Truth movement back in like 2005, 2006. So that's when I immediately knew and immediately said, look, I don't give a fuck. I'm not getting on one side of this. I'm not going to say it's true. I'm not going to say it's not true. All I'm going to say is I'm not going to fall for it, and I'm not going to put myself in the debate. I mean, do I know for 100% fact that the Earth is flat? No. Do I know for 100% fact the Earth is round? No. And I never entered myself in that debate. I just said 100%. I smell that it's bullshit one way or the other. I do think there is something to it that they're covering up. I think the reason why they've been pushing the flat Earth thing so much is to cover up something else that's true, that they're distracting everybody away from with the flat Earth stuff. I absolutely think there is something there to do that. What it is exactly, do I know? No, I don't. I don't have all the answers. But I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt immediately when I first started getting sniffs of it that there was something about it that was bullshit because it was being put. Same thing with the no plane theory. I don't 100% disbelieve that either, but I don't 100% believe it either. But again, I've never put myself on one end of it or the other because my discernment meter and my bullshit detector and my spidey sense has always told me that regardless of whether it's true or it isn't, when you look at the people that are pushing these certain things and you could smell the shit on them immediately from a mile away and you can tell they're disinfo agents, that immediately has to tell you not to attach yourself to one side or the other of whatever these current arguments are. I saw that from a mile away with the no plane theory thing. That's why I never got on one or the other of it. I mean, when I made 9/11 New World Rising, I actually put stuff in there in the film that I got contacted by many no plane people after that movie came out saying, thank you so much. You totally proved our point on the no plane thing with your film. And I went, I did? I didn't mean to. Wasn't my intent to. I guess you're welcome. I mean, but again, I wasn't trying to do that. And that's the same way I've still approached my movies. I try my best to not, I don't come to conclusions for you. I simply present the information the best way I can, and then you come to your own conclusions. But people don't understand that, and then I end up getting emails from people, oh, well, this, and this, and this, and this. Well, okay. And people are steadfast in what they think in their conclusions. Then they want to push their conclusions down my throat. And I reject that because I come to my own conclusions. But I'm not going to come to conclusions of this stuff for you. But that's what all the disinfo guys want. They want you to 100% believe their end of it, and there's no wiggle room. That's when you know you got some fucking spooks on your hands. See what else we got here. Yeah, but I did anyway. As that listener mentioned, yeah, I did see that clip where Joe Rogan is. They're talking about how great Tom Cruise is, and yeah, I mean, look, Rogan is. Look at the people he's had on his show. I went through and was going through all his videos and looking at all the guests and stuff he's had. He's never had anybody on there except all the people he's ever had are easily discreditable shills and people who have been either suspected or confirmed CIA agents. I mean, last year he had Jones, Leah Remini, and one other person who's a major suspect in my Spellcasters film. He had them on 3 days in a row. 3 successive shows. But he's also had people like Will Cox and fucking Greer the Queer. Just all these CIA spooks. I mean, he had fucking... recently he had on Ted Nugent, who, by the way, I've discovered in the course of making this film was also a CIA spook. I suspected him for years, but once I found out that... Well, I told you, man, Courtney Love's been connected into this mind control stuff through her dad since she was a kid, and she's also been connected to the Finders cult stuff and the sex slave cult stuff. She's even connected Jeffrey Epstein and all that stuff, and the Lolita Express. But when I found out that, she went on the Howard Stern show and said she sucked Ted Nugent's dick when she was 12 years old. And that's not the kind of thing you make up. And you could hear the tone of her voice. She wasn't joking around about it. And what's interesting is when Ted Nugent went on, I had never heard any other mention of this other than just that thing from the Stern show. It was from the 90s. But when Ted Nugent went on Joe Rogan, if you watch towards the end of the show, he brings it up and says, oh, it's bullshit, this, that, and the other, or whatever. No. She started going on tours with bands when she was 5 and 6 years old, folks. They were passing her around like a piece of meat back then. And even her dad has said, that's one thing she's used to get where she's at all these years, because she's connected. She's built dirt on and made connections on people all these years. And that's what she uses to this day. She uses blackmail and the dirt she's got on people's vices. She finds whatever, this is what her dad said, she finds whatever your kink is, and then that's what she uses to prey on you. But all these people Rogan has had on his fucking show, I mean, all of them, it's insane. It's like every single guest he has, unless they're like just a regular comedian or all these people, spooks and CIA guys and easily discredited people just out the wazoo. It's unbelievable. And how apologetic he is for Scientology. I mean, when he had on Ron Miscavige, remember on that Leah Remini show, every time when it would come back from the commercial before it start, they would have that thing from Scientology. It was like some disclaimer or some fucking thing, they'd show on the screen. I mean, I thought that was bullshit, But Joe Rogan, before he interviewed Ron Miscavige, he reads this disclaimer thing about Ron Miscavige from Scientology. Dude, you don't have to read that. If I was going to have somebody on my show about Scientology, do you think I would read their disclaimer that supposedly debunks whoever the guest is? Fuck them. You should have wadded that up and threw it in the trash. You have no responsibility. Unless you're fucking a member or you're connected to them somehow, there's no reason for you to read that. Yeah, he's definitely an apologist and definitely on the fucking... I've had my eye on Joe Rogan. I could talk about him for fucking hours. I really could. And here's what's interesting. Jones and as you know, or probably know, Jones and Joe Rogan have been friends for 20-something years. I mean, I remember when they did that. I used to play it on my show, that Belly of the Beast, Belly. Where they're fucking dressed up in the fucking presidential mask, Bush mask and stuff in Austin. That was like 1997 or 1988 when they did that. Even when Jones was on there, the last time he was on there where he was getting high and drunk and shit, Jones was talking about, I was in California. He wouldn't say why he was out there, why he happened to stop by Joe Rogan, because he was at some event he couldn't talk about. And fucking Buzz Aldrin was there. Well, Buzz Aldrin's a Freemason. It was probably some Scientology thing or something, or some Freemason thing, and that's why he wouldn't mention what he was doing out there at the time. Didn't want to bring that up because Rogan's got, I told you a couple of years ago about the connections to Freemasonry I found with Joe Rogan too. So he's had tons of Freemasons on. I mean, UFC alone, all the top people that control and started the UFC are all Freemasons. A lot of the big fighters in UFC are all Freemasons. There was a clip of, this was a few years back when the director Kevin Smith was on the Opie and Anthony show, and he told a story about Joe Rogan telling him about going to Club 33 at Disneyland, the secret Masonic club there. You can only, you have to be connected to Freemasons to get into. One of the things you find often with these people like this too is they always have some kind of oftentimes they have some kind of strange or mysterious, death or suicide or something connected to them. Even before he was doing his podcast. This is back when he was still on Fear Factor. This is when Joe Rogan first came up on my radar and my research radar. Because it was another one of those, I've talked about this many times, another one of those things where, I get a gut feeling about something. For instance, like when Carrie Fisher died. Remember I told y'all I had a gut feeling there was something weird about her death. It just seemed off. And then the medical reports came out. And she had cocaine and ecstasy, MDMA. Where's a fucking woman, pushing 70 years old, 60-something-year-old woman have access to ecstasy and cocaine and all that stuff from? That was my question. Something seemed weird about that. Then I find out in the course of making Spellcasters 2, when I'm doing my Courtney Love stuff, lo and behold, one of her BFFs, who she hung out with all the time. I've got some clips from a rare interview she did with Carrie Fisher where she really let some shit out of the bag. Yeah, Courtney Love and her were BFFs. And as you'll see in the film, Courtney Love's been, as well as being involved in the MK Ultra stuff and in the sex trade stuff, she's been one of the biggest distributors of substances throughout Hollywood. And many of the famous people who've overdosed and died and been on drugs and stuff, from the Osborne kids to other famous Scott Weiland. And it doesn't matter. She's been the person providing the drugs to all these people for decades. But I remember remember Phil Hartman from Saturday Night Live? Remember what happened to him? I remember that. I liked Phil Hartman. I remember when I first heard about that. I got that. I wasn't even that big into conspiracies that much then at that time, like I am now. It was kind of in that middle period in the 90s when I was kind of not really into this stuff because I was playing music and stuff. But I just had that gut feeling, man. Just like I had the day Kurt Cobain died. I just knew there was a gut feeling. It was an instinct thing. It was like I don't know what you call it, intuition. I just always knew and felt there was something shady about Phil Hartman's death. The story was that his wife was crazy and it was a, murder-suicide. She killed him, shot him, killed him, and then killed herself. And that just something always just stuck in my craw, and I just believe there was something else to it. So this was back, again, this is before he even did the sci-fi conspiracy shows, before he had the podcast. I remember back in like 2007, 2008, I was looking and doing some research and trying to find some stuff in the whole Phil Hartman thing. And this is where Joe Rogan first came on my radar, because this is a fact. You can go and look this up. One of the last people, if not the last person, to speak to Phil Hartman before he was killed was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan became friends with Phil Hartman, alleged supposedly, when they were doing the TV show. Remember that show, News Radio? I liked that show. I watched it when it was on. I had Brian Posehn from Mr. Show was in it, and I liked that show. I thought it was for the sitcoms of the 90s. I thought it was a pretty good show at the time. And yeah, you can go and read it. Apparently, like he set up the whole narrative. He was the only person Joe Rogan was the only person that really helped sell the story and the established narrative that she killed him and then killed herself, Phil Hartman and his wife. It was his, I wouldn't say testimony because it wasn't in a court of law, but I mean his admissions in the press that sold that narrative to the public and made everybody believe it was strictly Joe Rogan stuff. because he said he'd become friends with Phil Hartman while working on the set of News Radio with him, and that he told him that his wife was crazy and he needed to get rid of her. And then shortly after telling him that and talking to him, one of the last people that ever spoke to him alive was Joe Rogan. And then she killed Phil Hartman and killed herself. And then when you look, see, at the time, if you'd looked at that when it happened, at the time when it happened in the late 90s, it wouldn't have seemed suspicious to you at all. But if you go and you look now, like if you go to Joe Rogan's Wikipedia page or whatever, if you look at the trajectory of his career and you look at everything that's happened since the death of Phil Hartman and him being the last person to see him and talk to him alive and him selling the narrative, and you see that Joe Rogan's career went from him being this really nobody's failed actor to immediately right after that getting the Fear Factor gig and then the TV show gig and then the UFC. I mean, if you look at his career prior to the death of Phil Hartman and then post the death of Phil Hartman, and you look at the trajectory his career has taken since, all these guys have something like that connects them back to, that's oftentimes how these guys get in their place. They, especially if they're in cahoots with the CIA or anything else, it's almost like a blood sacrifice thing. It's like once you prove yourself and you take out one of these people. Now, the question, the big question, I guess, that anybody who would be skeptical about this would ask right out of the gates, because, again, when I was researching this, that was my question too. The first question anybody had would be, well, why would they want to eliminate Phil Hartman? Why would they want to eliminate him? You got to remember, folks, you got to put, again, all this stuff has to be put in the perspective of its time. And that's why so much of this stuff that I'm revealing in the Spellcasters, why so much of it happened back in that 1990s period. You got to remember Bill Clinton, when he was an officer in that time. You got to remember Bill Clinton was one of these mind control victims as well. He was supposedly, his handler was Poppy Bush. That's why all that left-right stuff, the Bushes call Bill Clinton their son. They call him their surrogate son. I mean, they hang out and vacation together. There's no left or right shit between the Bushes and the Clintons, man. It's one big happy. Always has been. That's a fact. You can verify that. That's not conspiracy theory. That's fact. Bill Clinton has always been like a adopted son to the Bush family, folks. And back during that time, everybody thinks of now, with all the stuff now in the current day with Saturday Night Live and all that stuff with, Alec Baldwin and Trump impersonation and all that. But back then, Phil Hartman was doing his bread and butter back then was his Bill Clinton impersonation. And Bill Clinton was not happy with it at all. Not at all. He was extremely angry about it. You got to remember, there's even a picture of, you remember Bill Clinton was in the Demole Freemasons, which is the child youth Freemason group, which Hank Harrison, Courtney Love's dad, was also in, because her grandfather was a Freemason, high level, 32nd degree. And there's actually a picture of Bill Clinton as a child, a youth, in the Demole Freemasons, and guess who he's meeting with and shaking hands with the Demoles? John F. Kennedy. Okay, so when you think about those connections with Rogan to the Freemasons, and you see those connections there, and how, during the Clinton administration, folks, they were whacking. It's unbelievable to me, and it's not just a vast right-wing conspiracy thing. It's a fact. There are more whackings and people getting whacked and killed connected to the Clinton administration that continued on for years and happened during it, man, than you can shake a stick at. And a lot of this stuff that connects and ties into, and we're talking, it also connects even back to prior to when they were when he was president. You can go back to a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be telling you about the death of Randy Rhoads and some of that stuff and how it connects in with Sharon Osbourne and all this stuff, connects into the cocaine trade stuff that connects to the CMP and also connects to the Mena, Arkansas connection. You can't even fucking dream. You can't even dream what I've uncovered here, folks. You can't even fucking imagine. So I think 100%, and especially when you look at how, listen to some of the stuff Rogan says and talks about the Clintons and stuff too. Listen closely to some of the stuff he talks about. You'll see he's a Clinton apologist in a lot of the stuff that he says. Yeah, I mean, I think 100% that's what that was. That's why they wanted to whack Phil Hartman. Had he, insulting the president. He was pissed. I mean, and he was drunk and arrogant with power. There's probably more to it than that. But when you look at the trajectory of Joe Rogan's career and how he was basically a complete and utter failure until Phil Hartman died, and all of a sudden his career skyrocketed off the roof. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, it's easy to see that there's definitely something to that. But again, I could talk on and on all night about all the Joe Rogan stuff, but the bottom line is, and I left a comment on my YouTube video about this. It's just like I told you years ago. When I first started on air in 2007, this was just prior to the elections where Obama won his first term, and this was back when Ron Paul was running for office, remember? And everybody was all behind Ron Paul, and that was when I first started being suspicious of Jones, even before I found out about the CMP stuff, just prior to when I found out about the CMP stuff, because, just like he turned coat and went full-blown establishment with Trump, for years before that, he was telling people, the voting machines are rigged, left and right are all controlled by the same people. Then all of a sudden, he's pushing Ron Paul on us and getting people to change. I mean, I was in the 9/11 Truth group here in Dallas with people, ladies and gentlemen, who were the most left-wing liberal people you can imagine, who listened to Alex Jones because they were in the 9/11 Truth stuff and changed over from Democrat to Republican just so they could vote for Ron Paul. That's how deep it was. And I started noticing, that's when I started noticing, then I found out about the CMP stuff, and that's when I realized that Jones, he's a trap. When people, because that's how me and a lot of other people, when you first start waking up to this stuff, you're just grabbing and looking for anybody else that even is remotely on the same page with the stuff that you're looking into. And that's why Jones is the trap. Because you hear the stuff he's saying, you're like, well, fuck, this ties in with other shit I found. And like I said, even before I found out about the CMP stuff, the first thing that started giving me a clue something wasn't right in Jonestown was when I started seeing all the, because I don't know, people this may be before a lot of your time, but back in the 80s and 90s and stuff, there used to be, I don't even know if it's around anymore. It used to be Soldier of Fortune magazine. And Soldier of Fortune magazine was like the ultimate, like, extremist stuff, guys fucking stocking ammo and, hordes of guns and fucking, prepper stuff. That's where you really found all your prepping for the end of the world stuff and storable foods, and that's what all it was. And I started noticing after I'd been listening to Jones for a year or so, it didn't make sense. It's like, why the fuck? This is supposed to be about conspiracies, and why all of a sudden are we combining the Soldier of Fortune, storable food, hoarding weapons, and talking about guns and gun rights? So why is all of a sudden are we associating this with stuff that I thought this was about, aliens and extraterrestrials and conspiracies and X-Files stuff? Why are we all of a sudden mixing the Soldier of Fortune stuff with this? That was the first clue, and I was like, something's not right here. There's some kind of other agenda going on here, even before I found all the stuff I know now and the CMP stuff and the rest of it. But Jones and Rogan, they now, of course, with the divide and conquer going on now, they're serving the same entities and serving the same people and have the same agenda, but it's really simple. They lure people in, counterculture people, researchers, conspiracy theorists, anybody outside of mainstream society that's figured out all the frauds. I mean, you can go through the whole list, whether it be the enslavement system fraud, the matrix fraud, the fact that left and right are two hands of the same coin, and you just all serves the same thing, all that stuff. But once people who have figured out this stuff, they have people like Jones and now Joe Rogan they trick people into thinking, and believe me, the difference between Joe Rogan and Alex Jones is this. Alex Jones' thing is to drag people specifically back towards the mainstream, it's politically. People who have gone off the grid, people who don't vote anymore, because I've said for years, and this is an absolute fact, voting for anybody and verifying to them that their system is good, just the choices are not good. Just go vote and vote for Donald Duck just as long as you vote. No, that's bullshit. Non-compliance to the system is what's going to bring it down. Non-participation. The day finally everybody in the United States of America decided not to vote and realized it was all a fraud, no matter who you vote for, you're still choosing between two pre-chosen people they've already decided for you that are going to produce the same results as the last person that was in there that's leaving. As soon as everybody figures that out, there'll be a revolution by morning. So this is what the Ron Paul thing, and then eventually led to, the Trump candidacy and the supporting of Trump and Jones and getting all the patriot movement people behind that, has been to transplant all these people who had gone off the grid and tried to pull themselves away from the mainstream consensus reality, back kicking and screaming back into mainstream reality where they're easily controlled and easily led again and not able to break off the grid and cause problems for the establishment. And Rogan does the exact same thing. He just does it in a different way. And he's a lot slicker than Jones, because Jones was a lot of people with his freak outs and his crazy over the top stuff and his, histrionics and the turning red and go, well, the thing about Joe Rogan, he's a very likable guy. He's very sensible. He's calm in his approach. And how's the old expression go? You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar or whatever. Well, that's the thing with Rogan, man. He wrote people in with the, talking about the moon landing stuff and Bigfoot stuff, and then he disavowed that. He was another one of those guys, just like David Wilcock. I remember, I hadn't forgot Rogan. He should have been run out on a rail like all the other clowns. Rogan was pushing the 2012 into the world stuff hardcore too. But where Rogan succeeds, where Jones fails is that, again, Jones comes off as not sensible and over the top and crazy and unbelievable. But the difference is with Rogan is that the disinfo that he spreads, it's very sensible the way he does it, because he kind of tries to base it on this. I mean, but it's just as much bullshit. But that's why he'll never have any real researchers or anybody. Why he would never fucking have me on. I'd love to be a guest on Joe Rogan show. I'd love that. Oh, I'd love it. I'd tear him apart. I'd tear him down. I would hit him with so much info and so much facts, he wouldn't have enough disinfo to play me down. And let me tell you something else, Joe Rogan. I'm going to tell you something about myself, Joe Rogan, that you might not know. I smoke rocks. It takes a lot of penises in my line of work, Joe Rogan. Remember that shit, Chappelle Show? No, let me tell you something. If that motherfucker tried to get up in my fucking grill, he wouldn't get up in my grill like he did. What was that fucking asshole's name? The stealer, the guy stealing material, Carlos Mencia. Got all up in his fucking screaming, got all in his face. Man, he wouldn't fucking do that to me. I'd break the motherfucker's nose. Rogan tried to get up in my grill like he got up in Mencia. I'd just break his fucking. Of course, he'd fuck me up and destroy me with his little faggy ass jujitsu after that, because I don't know any of that shit, but I do know how to break a fucking nose. He'd at least walk away with a broken nose, then he'd destroy me with his fucking gay ass jujitsu shit or whatever. But that's why he'll never have a real researcher or somebody else on like that. Because, and that's why these guys, you'll never see any of these guys even mention my name, folks. Doesn't matter what I say about them or how much I expose them. You notice that Jones, they won't ever say my name. They won't even to say that I don't know what I'm talking about or that I'm full of shit. They won't even mention my name to even say that I'm full of it. You ever notice that? Because they know that even the people that might agree with them at first, as soon as they hear or see some of my information, they're going to understand and realize that the wool's been pulled over their eyes. So that's all you'll never see. But I'm open, Joe. Fire up that fucking private jet of yours that you claim you got. Land that motherfucker in Dallas and send me over there. Send me, I'll come to your studio. I'll smoke some fucking weed and drink some whiskey. I won't get fucked up like Jerry's kids on, like fucking Jones did to fucking weed. You see that shit? Jones had like one drink and like two puff, and he was acting like he was a fucking 16-year-old girl on a fucking prom night. Jesus. Are you that much of a fucking lightweight, Jones? He was, man. You want to watch that fucking interview he did with Rogan when he was on there last time. Dude had like one sip of whiskey and like one hit of pot, and the dude was acting like he was about to take his panties off in the backseat of the car on prom night. Jesus. Oh, man. Oh. What else? I've got some other stuff here to get into, but I've been on here too long. Goddamn, 2 hours, 10 minutes already. That's a fucking long-ass show. Jesus, it didn't seem like it. Fucking blown by. God damn, I thought I'd only been here like an hour or something. Fuck, 2 hours and 10 minutes. Fuck, I gotta get back to work. Well, listen, guys, regardless of that, I'll be back here with you tomorrow too. Again, we've got tomorrow and then Wednesday to raise 100% of our operating costs. So please go ahead and start getting your contributions in now, so we can get that covered. So we can get these two films out. It's almost here. It's almost upon us, but we can't do it without your help, as usual, folks. None of this is possible without you. I'm just the conduit for this information, and I try to do my job the best I can, and endure all the shit I got to endure to do it. Because at the end of the day, it's worth it, and it's going to all be worth it when you see this film. You're going to go, I get it now. All of this is going to make sense to you once you watch these films. It can only make so much sense to you now, listen to hear me talking about it on the show. I get that. I understand that. But it's all going to make much more sense to you when you see these films, and I'm excited. I really am. I think I'm probably more excited for these than any other films I've released up to this point, because I just feel like it's just really, I don't know, just really my masterwork. And probably because all the stuff I had to endure just to get it done, and that feeling of having achieved it and being past it, probably has a lot to do, but also the information. I've wanted to make, people have been wanting me to make a film and do all this music stuff for a long, long time. People have really been anticipating me doing this. But like I said, it's even beyond what I expected it to be. So just get your contributions in and help us reach 100% by Wednesday so we can do this. And, everybody who contributes this week and contributes to help us reach our goal, when this movie is out towards the end of the week, towards the weekend or whatever, it's going to be a victory for all of us. It'll be a victory that we cover the operating costs, and it'll be a victory we made it this far and get this film out. And I just can't wait to share that victory with all of you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your continued support. I'll talk to you. I'll try to do the show again tomorrow. We'll talk again soon. Take care, guys.